new Mideast agreement that Israel signed. To be fair, this is not going to end the conflict in the Middle East, by the way. This is also does not solve the issue between Israel and the Gaza Strip, or the Palestinians. This is just unifying Israel, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates. They are all now going to embargo Iran. They're all now in a trade embargo against Iran, and they're coming together militarily to help each other too. The leaders have changed in Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates, and the new leaders who come into power are much less anti-Israel as the previous ones have been. So really what that does is it formalizes a union between Israel, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates when it comes to a trade embargo against Iran, and also for them to, as for military-wise, ends conflict or any conflict between them and their borders. But I really want to go back real quick to why is the United States so pro-Israel? And Christians will say it's because it was Jesus' birth and all that stuff. That's fair. I mean, if a president really was acting on that, sure. But it comes down to military strategy. Israel is a very small country surrounded by countries that used to hate it. Now, not as many countries. But it used to be surrounded by much bigger countries who hated it. And the only reason why Israel remained alive and not conquered was because of the United States for many years. Not only did we sell military technology to it, but we had bases there, we put troops there. When it comes from a striking standpoint, if you have bases in Israel, if you look at Israel where it sits in the middle of the Middle East, if you're able to have bases there, you can attack anywhere in the Middle East in a day. It's just where Israel sits is one of the most strategic places on the map when it comes to the Middle East. So the United States' relationship with Israel is based upon the need for a strategic area and stronghold in the Middle East and being able to strike from anywhere. So if war does break out there, much bigger than it does now, do we have a place where we can stage troops, and do we have a place where we can strike anywhere in the Middle East and very quickly? So that's why that relationship is maintained so fast. But this most recent agreement is just uniting Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, and Israel, both on an embargo on Iran. So the embargo now against Iran is going to be even tighter, which may force them to finally agree to denuclearize. Who the heck knows? I don't know if it will or not. It may finally take a regime change in Iran before that finally happens. And I don't know if you've been following the news, but Iran is hurting big time from these embargoes. So I don't really know if that's going to change very much. The people there are up in arms, marching in the streets for a change. So I don't know if that's actually changed or not, but these particular agreements is just between Israel, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates to embargo against Iran and also stop any potential military violence between those countries. It's a big deal for Israel, for sure. It checks off two potential enemies over there that are much larger than them. And it gives the United States a new military stronghold in the Middle East where it potentially didn't have it before. So we're now United Arab Emirates has never been a place recently that's been bad, but Bahrain now gives us an opportunity to put more troops there. United Arab Emirates now gives us a chance to put some more troops there, and Israel too, to secure their existence over there in the Middle East. So don't worry, it doesn't end the Palestinian-Israeli conflict or anything like that, and it doesn't end the war in the Middle East or bring any of our troops home. It's more for the security of Israel too that this happens. So.
Yeah, and I would challenge that a little bit with saying another big reason why the U.S. supports Israel so much is because they're one of the biggest lobbyists, if not the lobbyist organizations in the U.S. So they lobby the crap out of our elected officials to ensure that Israel keeps getting that money and that support. So that's what I would add to it. My comments on this, you know, I don't support the embargo or the military bases or anything. I'm more for not being involved there and just keeping things home. But I know the media is not going to give Trump any praises, even if it gets things calmer over there in the world.
No, I mean, the Associated Press tends to be as middle ground as it possibly can come. It just looked at it from a this is what it is mentality. Right wing are gonna more right sided media are gonna say this is great. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Strengthen Israel's position in the Middle East. Let's squeeze Iran even more until they finally make a decision to denuclearize and allow people to come in there. And then you got to go even further left. Because even CNN, when I read their take on it, I assumed that they were going to be, and MSNBC, I assumed they were going to be like, oh, this is terrible against Iran. Even they were like, that is what it is. If you go further left, to like Huffington Post and Vice News, if you go even further left, then you start getting the this is terrible. They shouldn't be doing this to Iran. Then you start getting into people who agree with you. Oh, this is terrible for Iran. We shouldn't be doing this to Iran. But if you want to listen to our Iran episode, which I think is one of our most popular, right?
Oh, yeah, it's the most popular episode that we've done, for sure. The most popular episode. It was a good episode. Maybe we should do another on Iran and talk more recent stuff.
I want to see how this impacts Iran in the upcoming months. How they respond to this. Not only how their government responds to it, but how their people respond to it. Because now they're going to be under even a heavier embargo than they were before. So I'm curious to see how they react to that. How the people react to that. Do they demand a regime change? Does the government make any changes? Only time will tell. We'll see how it really impacts the Middle East. But for now, Israel, Bahrain, and the United Arab Emirates are aligned with the U.S. So it's a big deal from that perspective, and also gives the U.S. access to tons more oil.
So that Obama can go back and post on Twitter saying the California fires, the sky's orange and red. Vote as if your life depends on it. But then just a couple of years ago, Obama doing interviews or fancy dinners where he brags about how he was responsible for the oil boom in America and how he single-handedly brought back energy production to the U.S.
Well, I mean, he did kind of greenlight fracking.
He did. He opened up the Arctic for drilling how many times?
So
he was the king of fracking.